Guten Abend, meine amazing internet and you superb creatures of the beyond. Now, shall we do a movie review? And Barbie of all movies. Just off the bat, let's get something straight. A movie is just a movie. It should never be taken serious. It's made for entertainment purposes. But sometimes a movie can also raise interesting questions that you have to ask for yourself or wonder upon. But yeah, don't think too much into it because a movie should not make people say, "Oh, I'm right, you're wrong," or uh, "My side is right, your side is wrong." It's all about finding something to enjoy in a movie. And personally, I did find quite some interesting elements in this movie that made me chuckle. It was an interesting and fun movie, but it also had kind of a dark moral and twist. And that's weird coming from a Barbie movie. You would not expect that. And it's a very hidden meaning. I'm not sure if that was the intention of the director of this movie, but well, that's the general idea that most people got out of this movie. So let's go on to it. So, uh, right from the beginning, if you haven't watched the movie, it's gonna be uh, treated with spoilers. But the point is this: the movie is not really about good and evil. It's more about culture. And the true hero of this movie is actually Ken, no matter what. It's not that because he's a man, it's because what he represents and how he acknowledges this reality about him. Well, reality in quotes because he doesn't live in the real world. And the experiences that he goes through in order to accept the things that changed him along his journey. So the Barbie land is this utopia, but only for the Barbie. Uh, they have this society where everything is perfect, they have perfect lives, and then there are the Kens who are just accessories. And that's weird because Kens just exist in that world. They have basically almost no rights. And they're okay with it because they're presenting as very, very stupid. While in contrast, Barbies are very, very intelligent. But this will come into play a little bit later, which I found quite interesting because this is a real social thing. And I'm not sure if, again, the director wanted to present this, but I think this trickled in naturally because this happens in our society so frequent that we're not even aware. It's second nature in a way. So the premises of this movie is about insecurities because Barbie is getting fat and she's insecure about that and she wants to counter that because that destroys her perfect world or what she perceives as perfect. And then well, he's just confused until he sees the real world and he sees appreciations and he's really treated as an equal. That's his most impactful, shocking realization that somebody can be treated as an equal and not as an accessory. So they go to the real world, and the real world is just this is a parody of reality because it's buffed up to 1,000. Sure, there are uh, weird men out there, but the movie just goes out of the way to make them look like, I don't know, cavemen and uneducated and rude. And that's, yeah, sure, some of those things happen between the two sexes, you know. Men can be misogynistic and can be oppressive towards women, but not in public. That if that happens, everybody in public would stop and would ostracize that person. Would even be thrown in jail in some countries because they intrude upon else's privacy. So in the movie, it's all too, I don't know, relaxed in terms of these restrictions. They just say like, all men are pigs, which is not okay. You're trying to put the contrast of Barbie Land with reality, and mm, perhaps the movie director was trying to amp all of these exaggerations just to prove a point. And the thing is that eventually Ken discovered these terms of patriarchy, but Ken is so confused that doesn't really understand the meaning of patriarchy correctly. He kind of gets a concept that men are treated better in reality than women in a way. And he goes around and says, "Hey, can I get the best paying job?" And and the guy is like, "No." And he's like, "But I thought it was patriarchy and people are kind of allowed." And he said, like, the other guy was like, "Yeah, we do it in silence, like, or something like that. It's like a secret. It's low key." But that was interesting. Basically, they say, like, you still need the education to get a job. So you can't just get a job because you're a man. But if you earn the job, uh, we'll put like our thumb on the scale to make it easier for you to get it. Probably that was the meaning behind the movie. And I got that. That was an interesting thing because it does happen in many societies in the world where men are more predominant in work functions than women. Not all countries, but a large majority of them. So that is a dire contrast of our species, and it has been gone for a very long time. Now, to be honest, in the recent decades, things have gotten more equal, but we still have a long way to go. But what is interesting is that when Ken goes back to the Barbie land and bring this concept, it's wrongfully presented because it's not patriarchy what he brings back, it's equality. Well, sure, he does this thing of propaganda where he manipulates the Barbies to like the Ken, but he's not subjugating the Barbies to be, I don't know, slaves. Sure, they bring them beers, but come on, that's silly. But they're taking positions of power. Of course, when you do something for the first time, you tend to do it in excess. But until then, they were living under the foot of the Barbies. So basically, now the tables have turned. But instead of them treating like the Barbies like trash for how they were oppressing them, they're treating them quite nicely, to be honest, because everybody's happy. They're spending time together. It's a beautiful thing when you see it. Sure, there's still some controversy around the manipulation thing, but again, it's not bad in a way. And then Barbie comes back with the mother and the child, and they're like, no, it has to be changed. And at the end of the movie, instead of giving equal rights to the Kens, because they manipulate the Kens to fight each other, and that's also a weird tactic. And at the end, instead of giving them equal rights with that political system they're having in their world, they're like, no, you still have to go through all of the processes, the lower courts, the upper courts, blah blah blah, and maybe you will get a position. And what I thought this presented was the fact that the Kens of the Barbie Land are actually the women of our real world because they have to struggle through a system that is predominantly um, led by men. And if you look into, yeah, sure, in the latest decade, as I said, more women have been started to rise up and get integrated, but it's a struggle for them. And I'm not referring to America. I'm referring to general countries around the world, especially in the Middle East. There, the women rights are starting to sprout out, but there's still a lot of work to be done there. And America has it the best, in my opinion, when it comes to men and women rights versus some other countries in the world. Sure, they also have a lot of problems, but for other countries looking at America, like, yeah, that's way better than what we have here. So anyway, I think the movie accidentally made the the point that the patriarchy was already in the Barbie land, but it was only under the mask of the matriarchy. And then the Kens, who were presented as the feminine side, tried to bring in this equality concept. And it worked for a while, but then when and this is interesting because it's the manipulation techniques are not explained, but this is a little bit kind of real in the real world. There are super intelligent people who can be easily drawn into something when they're passionate about. So if somebody has the charisma, they can easily pull the wool over your eyes to go into a direction that is not necessarily correct and pull you down this what's it called, conspiracy theory idea. And it happens to many smart people. They can be doctors, lawyers, but if they have that one thing that they correlate with them, then they can fall into this hole, this deep rabbit hole. And by the time they realize that, it's kind of late. So the Barbies were kind of like that. They had no real immunity to it because they never understood equality before. So when the Ken brought it, they said, "Oh, it must be correct because they brought it from the real world." So they accepted it. But then the other Barbie that came back wanted, or the ones that were unaffected wanted what was going on before because they had all the power. So yeah, it's a power struggle. It's kind of political, but also a fight between the sexes. But what's also interesting is like when they make the Kens fight between each other, and that is also kind of real of our society because men can be judgmental of women, but women can be more judgmental of other women. So when the Kens fight, it's like women fighting between themselves and they're more concerned about looks and things like that than men are. So men can kind of, I don't know, mind hack that between women. So probably that is also trickled in the movie. Maybe accidentally, maybe intentional, I don't know. But the point is that the moral that we can take from this movie is like the Ken are really the feminine side of our world, and we should treat men and women equally in our society as much as possible. And I think that there should be equal opportunity for women in a man's society, and it shouldn't be a man's society. It should be a, a human society, basically. And yeah, women could get like very messy jobs, such as, I don't know, taking, collecting trash and doing plumbing, and they should also get more high-paying jobs and becoming like very good lawyers and having positions of power in the court system, correlating with what was said in the movie. So kind of like the reality of Barbie with the reality of our world is put in contrast. Basically, they're two sides of the same coin. While in the real world of the movie, the patriarchy is presented as the dominant leadership by the male, in the Barbie land, the matriarchy is presented by the females there. And put side by side, they're kind of the same world because the Barbie land is a representation of the real world. So again, insecurities, things like that. So yeah, the moral of the movie is like be more like Ken, be more empathetic to both men and women, of course. So yeah, I kind of like this movie. I recommend you watch it, and yeah, it's fun. It's fun. Thank you for watching and listening to my ramblings, and you stay awesome. Catch you in the next episode. Bye 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 bye.